Hello, and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Molly, and today I am out in the garden because we are doing a full garden tour. Over the last several months, we have been working on growing all of our seedlings from seed, nurturing them, expanding garden beds, composting, and planting. And now that everything is in the ground, I thought it would be fun to give you a tour of all of the garden beds, blinded by the sun, and show you how everything is doing so far. Right now we have like 4 distinct kind of garden areas. The first I'm going to show you is the kitchen garden or the raised bed garden, and this space we designed and built from scratch shortly after we moved into this house in the spring of 2023. So we are now in our 3rd year of gardening, and we've learned some lessons, we failed, we've succeeded, and it's evolved a little bit over the years. We primarily use this space for all of our food. I do mix some flowers in for fun and color, and then it's also surrounded by a perennial border garden, so we get a little bit of a mix of form and function, if you will. But this is truly one of my favorite spaces of all time. I absolutely love it. I come out here multiple times a day to check on things and pull little weeds out, and it's just fun. This space is also part of our enclosed, like fenced in area, which is nice because since I spend so much time out here, I can let the dogs run freely and they can kind of hang out with me here too. So this space has 6 beds total. The 4 on the corners are 4 foot by 10 foot. And the 2 in the middle here are 4 foot by 8 foot, just so we had a little bit of wiggle room in the middle for a garden table. It's a little bit messy right now, but once I get all that cleaned off, it's a great space to sit and work, chat with friends, have coffee, and I love that we have a little bit of freedom around here. It's not too tight. You can see that we just gained that little bit of extra space by shortening the 2 middle beds. We have a couple of different trellises. There's 2 here wedged between the outside beds. You can see one in the front and one in the back. These are just 16-foot cattle panels that we wedged between the beds to create an arch. And then we used a 16-foot panel and cut it in half to create these vertical trellises in the 2 middle beds. All of these are used for various climbing plants. Most of them are tomatoes. These vertical panels are all tomatoes in both beds. So I plant like 4 tomato plants on each side, and they just kind of like weave in between the panel. And that's what keeps them upright so they don't get all floppy throughout the summer. On the front arch trellis here, we plant cherry tomatoes. So I have 2 different varieties, 1 on each side, 2 plants of each. So once those start to grow, they kind of like intermix, and it just becomes a really beautiful focal point for the garden here. In the back, I am planting beans. I have planted beans back here the last 2 years. Last year, once they started growing, we had a windstorm and the whole thing tipped over, which was such a bummer because it ripped all of the plants out of the ground. So I've reinforced it with these pipes you can see here, and hopefully we won't have that issue this year. I've planted 2 different varieties. We've got scarlet runner beans on this side. I've never grown them before, so I'm really excited. You can see they've all started to pop up and they're looking pretty happy. Once they are long enough, I just kind of like nudge them towards the trellis, and eventually they wrap on and just start climbing. On this other side, I just have some regular old green beans. I planted like, 10 plants, so I think we're gonna be inundated with beans, but I'm okay with that because once they start coming, they freeze really well, and I'll just munch on them as a garden snack when I'm out here doing various chores. So I love to have beans, and I'm especially excited because last year we had a little bit of a tragedy. So like I said, our 2 middle beds have these vertical panels that we use for all of our tomato plants. We did this last year. It's super easy to do, and I find that these are much more sturdy than the standard tomato cages. It's also just much easier than having to like install those every year. And as the plants get big and tall and unwieldy, those can kind of like crumple or tip over. And this thing like was sturdy all season long. Now for the beds themselves. So there is a mix of some perennials in here, like herbs. On the corner here we have garlic chives and regular chives, and those just come back every year. I did plant some basil over here. This is basil we started from seed, but it is just looking so sad. I don't know what we did wrong. I thought it would be so easy, but it only ever grew like this top set of leaves, and as you can see, it's just starting to put out these little baby leaves at the bottoms, but it's all been looking pretty sad. This one's basically dead. So I don't know if it was me or the soil or what, but I think I'm gonna pick up a pack of basil from the garden center just to replace that, so we actually have some healthy basil. These are all our French breakfast radishes, which look so good. We planted these pretty early in the season, and I've even started the second set of seeds, so you can see where I pulled some out, I put some new seed in. This is huge, look at that. I'm gonna pull it out. I got a little one too, but these are my favorite. They grow really fast. They're pretty easy to grow if they can get past the pests in the beginning. You can see the leaves have been nibbled on a little bit, but if you like radishes, French breakfasts are really quick growers. Over here we have some cilantro. I have a couple of pepper plants here. This one is looking very sad. I think it needs a drink of water, but it's otherwise doing okay. In the middle section here, we've got all of our celery. Last year that did all right until it got curly leaf, which is like some kind of disease where all the leaves curl. Honestly, it kind of looks like this actually, so I'm hoping that's not what's happening there and that's just thirsty, but we will see. We've got some bok choy over here. This batch is doing better than the one in the other bed. Something found that one, so you can see some nibbles on this, but for the most part it's doing okay. And then next to that is either a cucumber, a squash, or a pumpkin. I don't know what it is, but when I saw spaces in the beds, I stuck some of the big stuff in because this is fun when it like drapes over and kind of just like spills into the walking paths. So we'll find out what that is once it starts to fill in a bit. Flipping around behind me, we've got a whole bunch of tomatoes, and then we've got some sage, which this comes back every year. I actually saw a flowering sage when I was in Gloucester, Massachusetts the other weekend, and I didn't actually know that was a thing, so I don't know if this one flowers or if it's a particular variety, but I think I'm going to look into that because it's a lovely purple flower, and that is my color scheme for all of our perennial gardens. This is a lavender. I started that from seed. It's actually doing very well. The lavender I started last year was so tiny, but for whatever reason this year it did much better in the seedling stage. This is a little nasturtium. Those are my favorite flowers to grow. They're edible. They fill out so beautifully. They'll just spill out of the bed and they have such beautiful colors. I got a different variety this year, so I'm excited to see what that looks like. These are some celosia seedlings that just barely made it. Over here we have some peppers. I can't remember the variety. They might be shishito peppers. I'm hoping they are. I think I had 4 of those. And then next to that is some green onions. We've got a little violet plant at the end here. Some more peppers around the other side. These, I believe, are the jalapenos. And then along this edge is a whole bunch of cilantro, a marigold, some thyme. I'm sure I put something in this blank space, but I have no idea what it is, so we'll just have to wait and see if anything pops up. This back corner has mostly strawberries. I've kind of let them take over. I'm really not sure how many happy strawberries we'll get. We always get to this stage, but then they get kind of like eaten or just look a little bit funky and never really come to fruition. So I don't know. Like, I see a whole bunch in there, but they just don't look great. The leaves always look super happy. I'm sure it has something to do with like what's in the soil or too little or too much water. If anybody has any tips on strawberries or might know what's going on here, do let me know because I would love to be picking strawberries. But that aside, we've got a couple of onions here at the end. That is a cucumber, I know for sure. I planted another nasturtium here, so that will like spill over and look nice and colorful. We've got some bok choy along the edge here, a little more eaten than the others, but still putting out new growth, so I think we're okay. These are a couple of sweet Annie I had left over from the back bed. It's just like a floral filler, so I figured I'd throw it in here and see how it did in the raised beds. I attempted to plant some of our purple basil here, but as you can see, it is also not doing great. So the basil was a little bit of a flop in most cases. So I've got to see if I can grab some of that from the garden center before it's too late. We have a few more peppers right here. Again, I cannot remember which variety, maybe a bell pepper. We will find out. And then in front of that, we've got some dill, and I believe this is a squash, though I can't remember which variety. Maybe an acorn, we'll see. And then, like I said, those are all the green beans. Okay, so now moving to the back corner, we've got our kale, arugula, and collards. Now, if you remember, the kale we tried from seed, it got totally eaten. So I bought some starts from the local garden center, and those are doing okay. And then all of our little collards and arugula seedlings also got leveled. So I just planted a whole bunch of new seed, and it's starting to come up. So I'm hoping that that will push through and we'll be able to harvest that the next few weeks. We've got a few parsley right here in the front. These are my tomatillos. I only planted 2 this year. They go absolutely bonkers. And every time I plant way too many plants and just have tomatillos coming out of my ears. So I pulled it back this year and decided just to plant 2 so that we're not inundated with them. And I'm excited to see how they do in this back bed because we have not yet planted any tomatoes or tomatillos or anything like that back here. Behind that, we've got a whole bunch more cilantro. I've got some more sweet Annie here, dill in the front. I could have sworn I planted a nasturtium over here, but it hasn't come up yet, so we'll see. And then this is a viola that we planted last year, and that's a perennial. So that comes back every year, and it's just a fun little pop on the corner here. Oh, and I also have some onions. These are either red onions or white onions or yellow onions. I can't remember. They're looking a little bit sad, but again, I did fertilize recently, so I'm hoping that will just give everything the boost it needs. Aside from the tomatoes in this bed, we've got some more green onions back here. I did plant some pumpkins here on the corner. I had some extra seed, so I just stuck them in. Both of them came up, so I'm just gonna let them both go, and then I'll probably have to pull one out because we will not have space for both. But again, those are just so fun to plant because they spill out into the pathway and add a lot of color. This whole space here I haven't actually planted anything in, so I need to figure that out because we have extra space and I always love to maximize it. So I'll either pick something up from the garden center or start something from seed that we still have time to plant. I've got some more thyme here on the end. This is oregano. I love this. It's just a beautiful plant. I think it might flower actually. This might be the first year we get to see those flowers, but obviously it's great for cooking as well, and it comes back every year. It just gets bigger and bigger. And then over here, I did try to plant more radishes and more carrots, but as you can see, there's not much to look at because it all got eaten twice. So something's out here just feeding on my little baby greens. In this last bed in the front, we've got another viola. Again, planted this last year, came back beautifully this year. Tarragon, which I did get a seedling from a plant sale, and it looks kind of sad. Like, it looks a little yellow and kind of like it's dying in the middle here. So has anyone planted tarragon before? Like, is this normal? I've never actually planted it. I just thought it would be a fun one to try, and I'm not sure if I'm overwatering it, underwatering it, or if that's just kind of the way it grows. So let me know if you have any tips on that. This is another squash, potentially. Forgot what that is, maybe a zucchini. More sad basil. I will be replacing this as well. It's doing the same thing as the other one where it just puts out leaves at the top and then they kind of shrivel up and die. So I don't know what's going on there. These are a couple of peppers, I think more shishito potentially. To the right of that in the middle here, we've got all of our fennel. I'm really excited about this. I started all of these from seed. Last year we also started it from seed and it did really well, but I forgot to mound it up as the little bulbs started to form. So it just kind of like shot up, it got really spindly, and then it went to seed. So we didn't actually get to harvest any of that, and I'm going to try to be more on top of it this year because it looks happy so far. Clearly I went pepper crazy because we have 2 more peppers here. Couldn't tell you what kind they are. They're on my spreadsheet. I did mark all this down, but I just don't have it memorized. So I'll have to look back at the spreadsheet, but lots of peppers this year, which is a good thing because last year we didn't have a ton. Another lavender plant on the corner and then some more onions. Again, looking a little sad. Onions and carrots have been so hard for us. Over the last few years, I have just not been able to figure that out. And I just don't know why. Like, the soil is all composted, it's loose, it's not too compact, we've got irrigation. I feel like we're setting them up in the right environment, but they just don't love it. So I'll have to continue experimenting. But again, any tips on onions or carrots, or really anything else here, are welcome. In the corner here, we have our lettuce, which again, not doing so great. I don't know what went on here. It's really weird because I've planted lettuce before and it's been very happy. This is the second batch of seed I planted because the first batch just got annihilated. So I went crazy and heavily seeded a couple of new rows, and it's coming up, but it's taking its sweet time. And then the spinach did okay in the front there, but then in the back, we don't have much. So I think something got a little hungry and found its way under the net. So that's it for the kitchen garden. As you can see, chock full of veggies and some perennials, flowers, herbs, things like that. I definitely planted a lot more flowers in here last year, like I stuck in some cosmos and zinnias, but since we expanded the back garden, which I will show you shortly, and we had a lot more space for flowers back there this year, I stuck most of the seedlings there and kind of reserved the space in these raised beds for more veggies. So there are a few duds, but mostly everything seems pretty happy so far. And since I just fertilized, I think that will give it a boost and we'll start to see a little extra growth, you know, over the next week or so. And I'm going to try to stay on top of that because over the last few years, I have just completely neglected fertilization. And so I'm like, why are the plants so sad? Well, it's because they're hungry and they need nutrients too. So I've learned my lesson and I have stocked up, and we will try to be better about that this year. Now, around the outside of the kitchen garden, we have this lovely little perennial border garden, which I am continuing to add to over the years. So we've got like catmint and salvia, I've got a peony, we've got some hellebores, some gaura. This plant here, hold on, I have to put the camera back. It is enormous. Look at this. This plant got so big. I planted this from seed last year, and it just exploded this year. I have the same plants in the other section of the border garden over there, and it's like only maybe up to like my waist. So for whatever reason, this one is really happy right here, and I do love it. It will have, I think, these beautiful purple spike flowers, but it feels a little out of place with everything else because it's the tallest by like a couple of feet, honestly. So I think this year, maybe in the fall, we will dig it up and move it and find another place for it because it's a beautiful plant and it's obviously very healthy and happy, but I want this to kind of stay roughly like around the same height and be a little bit lower so it doesn't block the view of the beds. A lot of these plants we actually just put in this year, so they are quite small, but they will fill in. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops over the coming years, and I will continue adding to it because I just want it to be filled with color and just feel like a really beautiful kind of like floral hedge almost. I think that's actually a lavender that I planted from seed, which is kind of crazy. Look at that. Look, we've got some little buds there. Oh, that's exciting. On the end, I have my 3 little stick teepees that I built last year for sweet peas, which I loved, but they were a lot harder to grow than I was expecting, so I did not do them again this year. But when I initially put them in the ground, I had stuck these little baby plants in. Because it just like filled in so beautifully this year, I kind of just like the way it's peeking out of the trellis. And then same here with the violets at the bottom, they're just kind of like popping through the edges. And I like this like added textural kind of height element. So I'm just gonna leave them as is. This last one, because I hadn't really planted anything in this garden yet, I ended up sticking some edamame seeds in the ground. You can see them starting to pop up here. So once those kind of get a little bit taller, we'll train them onto the string I have wrapped around. So we'll have a nice little trellis filled with edamame. I will probably have to reinforce these sooner rather than later because this string will not hold forever. I will include a link to the video where I made these, but I literally just pulled some sticks out of the woods and kind of created my own teepee and then used twine to tie them together and create this kind of like support here so that things could climb up it. So that's a nice way to just like kind of break things up and add a little bit more of an organic feel with trellises. Now I am actually taking you to the back garden bed, which is just a plain old in-ground garden bed. It's nothing special. When we first moved into this house, the previous owners had a couple of old raised beds back here, but they weren't in great condition. So we just ripped them up and kind of turned that space into a rectangular garden bed. We didn't do much with it. I think I tried planting a few things back here, but I didn't really keep on top of it, so it was mostly just a bed of weeds. And then this spring, we extended it a little bit to try to consolidate a couple of the different garden beds we managed last year. We had a whole separate pumpkin patch and squash patch last year, which was a lot of fun, but it was pretty far away from the house. I didn't have irrigation out there. It was hard to water. So I wanted to try to make our lives a little bit easier by consolidating our garden spaces. It also kept me in check a little bit when I was planting, because the more space you have, the more stuff you want to grow, and the more work you have taking care of it. So this just ensured that I didn't go overboard, and hopefully will make our lives a little bit easier when it comes to watering this year, because I still don't have irrigation set up. So as you can see, it's just one big long rectangle, and we made it kind of long and skinny so we could still easily get the mower around it. On the left side here, which is the sort of extended section, this part here from like the garlic over was all added. So we grew 3 rows of potatoes, a couple of different kinds. You can see they're already popping up, super happy. On one of our rainy days, some potatoes were already popping through the ground, so those are cruising. Next to that is a mix of squash, pumpkins, and potentially a cucumber. Again, don't know which one is which. We'll just have to see when they come up, but I did try to cram them in. Typically, you probably wouldn't space them this close together, but because we had limited space and I really do love growing the squash and pumpkins, I figured I would just cram them in and let them go a little crazy. Next to that, we have some shallots and garlic. So these were actually planted as bulbs in the fall, and you can see that they're starting to yellow a little bit. We are actually starting to get our scapes. These are these little like curly cues kind of popping out the top here in the middle. So these can actually be harvested and turned into like garlic pesto. So I'll show you how I do that maybe in a couple of weeks. But once they all start to yellow and totally flop over, we will know they're ready to harvest and we can start pulling up garlic and shallots. So that's super exciting. A couple more squash here. We did try to grow some more onions back here just to experiment and see whether they liked it in this back bed or they worked in the raised beds. So fingers crossed. They're not looking great back here either, but I don't know, maybe I'm just, maybe I look at them too frequently. So I'm expecting big things and they just need time, but they're looking a little yellow and floppy, so we will see. Now we get into all the flowers, which is the thing I'm the most excited about because I've never had a big like flower patch like this. I've always kind of just sporadically stuck a few flowers in the ground here and there. So we've got a mix of stock and snapdragon here. I think there are a couple of Clarkia in the back, but for the most part, this is stock and snapdragon. This is Sweet Annie in the front and eucalyptus in the back. The eucalyptus are kind of small, but they're not keeling over. So I think they might just be slow growers. This little guy here seems pretty happy. He's gotten a little bit bigger. But my goal with these was to grow some more like greenery filler type things. We have a lot of colorful flowers, but it's hard to like make the bouquet feel nice and full if you don't have good filler. So I thought the Sweet Annie and eucalyptus would be a fun add-in. Next to that here, we've got a mix of cosmos and zinnias. And then I stuck a few dahlias that I actually grew from seed in the middle here. I forgot about them. I planted all the dahlias in the space to the right here. And then I was like, oh shoot, I need to put those somewhere. So I just stuck them in the middle. And you can see we're already getting some cosmos flowering back here, which is pretty exciting. I planted a few different varieties this year. So these ones, these were already blooming inside when we were growing them from seed. And then I got the first white one the other day. This one's already dying off, but we will get some more. I got a dead head, so you can keep getting these new buds. And then the zinnias are just on the verge of popping. There's a little bud there. At the very end here is where we planted all of our dahlias, and you can see some of them have started to pop up. Some are pretty small and just starting to peek through the surface. Others kind of poked up a few days in advance, so like some are smaller than others. This one's already getting pretty big. This one too. I randomly have some potatoes that just exploded from last year. So I had planted potatoes on this side last year. I kind of forgot about them. They got just inundated with weeds and I just left them. Then we turned up all this soil when we composted before we actually planted everything up. And there were some rogue potatoes and they are very happy. So when I saw them starting to pop up, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave them because you can never have too many potatoes. So you'll see those kind of sprinkled about in the dahlia row here and just kind of like on the end there, but they are thriving, so why not let them do their thing, right? I had a little patch of space behind the garlic and shallots, so I threw a ton of sunflower seeds in, like a ton, like too many probably, but they're all coming up. And last year when I did this, they just got totally eaten alive, and I only had like 3 sunflowers actually make it through. So I'm very excited to see these thriving, and I'm just gonna leave them all. I think it will be really cool to see a whole wall of sunflowers back here. And the cool thing about these is these were all seeds I collected from the few sunflowers we actually were able to grow last year. So that's it for the back bed. Hopefully I'll be able to manage that a little bit better this year. There are a lot of weeds coming up, like a lot. So that's gonna be quite the job, and it did not really occur to me that that would be as much of an issue, and I should have known because last year that bed was just filled with weeds when we weren't really planting much in it. So I'm gonna have to think about weed control for next year. I've seen people do like landscaping fabric and just burn holes in it to put individual seedlings in so it's mostly covered. I've seen people only water like the rows and not water the whole bed, which is kind of hard right now because you don't have irrigation set up. So I will have to think about that, but in the meantime, it's fine. I'll just, spend some days weeding out there and listening to a book or something. Next up are the 2 raised beds here right next to the driveway. In this bed, we've got a mix of zinnias, cosmos, snapdragons, and stock. And then I've got a couple of daffodils here that are just finishing up from the bulbs I planted in the fall. So we'll clip those back once they start to like completely die, but it's just nice filler for now. You can see again, we've got some of our cosmos starting to bloom. I do always deadhead these because if you do, you just get so many more blooms. So you can see on this one, like I've deadheaded these 2 stems, and we have another bloom here. There's one coming up right there by my pointer finger, and here. So last year I was pretty on top of deadheading, and this bed was just overflowing with blooms. It was amazing. I was very, very happy about it. So we'll have to do the same on this guy. Pop those off so that the energy can go into the new blooms. Next to that flower bed, I did 1 full bed of dahlias. So I believe I planted 10 tubers in here. 8 of them have popped up. Some of them are a little smaller than others, but generally they're looking pretty good. And then I've got 1 in the corner here that hasn't showed up yet, and 1 in this bottom corner. I'm hoping they're just a little behind. If they don't pop up, I might try to stick another tuber in the ground. I actually got a whole bag of dahlia tubers from a neighbor, and I figured I might as well throw them in because even if they're a little delayed, they'll reproduce underground, and we can, collect those tubers and save them for next year. So I may try to do that here just to fill this bed out a little bit. But other than that, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're all starting to come up. And now that they're showing, I can start watering them. I typically don't water the tubers until they do start to come through the soil. So now that we're seeing the greenery, I need to stay on top of that. Last but not least is our front perennial garden. This is one of my favorite spots. When we moved in, it just had a whole bunch of dead looking bushes, and it was, very neglected. There wasn't a lot going on. And I always knew I wanted to turn it into just a beautiful flower garden, something that could kind of build and grow over time, but that we could enjoy from the porch. So you can see the violets have completely taken over, which I kind of love. I did not expect that at all. I planted like 4 of those from seed last year, and they just like completely filled in and took over. But it's a really fun look, and it kind of is working as nice ground cover. So that's cool. My iris that I planted from a bulb 2 years ago finally flowered this year, but it's kind of past its prime, so it's looking a little sad, but it was a beautiful white sort of papery iris. We've got 3 hydrangeas, 1 in the corner, 1 in the middle, and the 1 over there in the corner. That one for some reason is like slower than the other ones. Like these guys look pretty full, so I'm hoping it will catch up eventually. But those are like a bluish white kind of flower with a variegated leaf, and I really love how it kind of just adds like a slightly different color to the garden. I kind of stick in like the purple, white, blue family, and those are just a really fun pop of color. I also stuck in a whole bunch of little guys. You can't see them all, but like anything I had left over from our seedlings I stuck in here. I also planted a nasturtium right here because I thought that would be really pretty, just like draping down the rock wall. I stuck in a few of my lavender seedlings. I added some of the garlic chive seedlings because that has a beautiful white flower, so technically they are edible, but they are perennials, so they'll come back every year, and I think they'll add some nice texture. This butterfly bush I absolutely love. I mean, look at this color. It's this beautiful, like purpley pinkish white. You see this a lot in that like bluish purple color, but this color I had not seen when we got it from Lake Street Garden Center last year, so I'm excited to see that one actually blooming. I had planted two. One was over here kind of on the edge, but it came up and then died. So I might try to look for another one so that we have a little bit of consistency in this bed. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I did pop in some foxglove seedlings like right there that I started from seed I collected last year. So I'm not sure if those will flower this year, but we will find out. And then we've got some anise hyssop and phlox in the back kind of growing between the hydrangeas. So those are looking fairly happy. I think they'll start to flower in a few weeks maybe. I also have these barrels in here, which I did add because I want to add some like height and texture to the garden, but I haven't decided what I want to plant in them yet. So I just leveled them out with stones when we composted, but they're currently just sitting here empty. I still think they look really cute empty, but eventually we'll get something in there. And when we do, I'll let you know what I decide on. Lastly, down here in front of the rock wall, we've got all of our purple sensation alliums, which you can see are kind of past their prime now. I did learn a tip though, if you want to keep like this texture, but you don't want the plant to like send all the energy to producing seed, you can actually just like cut them at the base and then stick them in the soil because they're pretty rigid and they'll stay upright. So you can enjoy the texture, but then the energy can kind of like go back into the bulb so that you can get strong blooms the next year. So I typically do that. It's probably time I do that now. I've just been kind of lazy, but I did do it to the ones in the border garden around the raised beds. The other plants I have here, which are a little sporadic because some of them made it when I transplanted them and some of them didn't. So I have a huge gap here. I've got two at the end. I've got one in the middle here, and then I've got three toward the end here. And these are all Annabelle hydrangeas. These all came from one of my mom's hydrangeas. We just kind of split the clump, and then I took that clump and divided it into 9 smaller clumps and planted those all here in the front. And 6 of them made it, 3 of them did not. So we do have a few gaps, but I'm hoping that once these kind of mature a little bit, I can divide those and then fill in those gaps where the other transplants didn't make it. My last addition for the year was planting up these Boston ferns in our hanging baskets. Last year I attempted to plant some annuals in these and they just were not happy, and they were basically just like baskets of dead plants hanging all summer long. And I have been told that the Boston ferns are fairly easy to take care of, and I also like how like full and fluffy and wild they are. So we'll see how they do. They're definitely leaning toward the sun side, and I am getting some browning, so I'm not sure if I'm overwatering them, underwatering them, or I don't know, they're just not happy in the soil, or maybe they're just adjusting. Crossing my fingers that they'll hang on and stick it out through the summer because they look really, really pretty up here, and it's much easier than planting a whole bunch of annuals in these baskets for sure. So that concludes our early summer garden tour. I don't know if it's technically summer yet, but it's pretty close. So I will definitely do another tour as things start to fill in and kind of show you how everything's looking. As you saw, there is some work to do on replacing a few plants already, fending off pests. We've got lots of weeding coming up. But honestly, the hard part is done. Our little baby seedlings that we took care of for months are in the ground now. Most of them are happy, and I'm excited to see everything come to life, and especially be able to cut some of our own flowers, harvest some of our own food, and cook some yummy meals from all of that. Let me know if you have any questions on what we've planted, where we've planted it, or if you have any tips on some of the things we're struggling on. Some of you gardeners are far more knowledgeable than I am, and I would love to learn from you. I'm sure I'm doing something silly, but sometimes it's just those little tips that, you know, spin things around into the positive. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, let me know by giving it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, click the bell notification if you want to be notified for future uploads, and share it with a friend if you think it's something they would like, and I will catch up with you in the next video.